The chamber above the dying star was never meant to be loud. It was built for certainty, for calm voices, for decisions made long before fear arrived. Yet now, the Galactic Council chamber vibrated with overlapping signals, warning lights, and the low, nervous murmur of species who had ruled the stars for 10,000 years, and were realizing, all at once, that none of it might matter. A vast hologram hovered at the center of the chamber. It showed the same image every delegate had already seen dozens of times. An enemy fleet, not scattered, not probing, advancing. Layer upon layer of warships moved with mechanical precision, swallowing star systems whole. Defense lines had collapsed in hours. Civilian evacuations were failing. Entire worlds were already dark. "This projection is impossible," one counselor said, his voice sharp with denial. "No force moves that fast without burning itself apart." The tactical display was updated. Another system fell. Silence spread, heavy and suffocating. "They are not slowing," the high strategist said quietly. "They are accelerating." Across the chamber, representatives shifted in their seats. Some clenched claws. Others folded wings tight against their bodies. A few simply stared at the hologram, unable to look away. "This is an extinction advance," someone whispered. The words settled like a verdict. For the first time in recorded galactic history, the Council was not debating trade, territory, or influence. They were discussing survival. Emergency fleets were already mobilizing. Ancient defense platforms were being dragged out of orbit. Weapon systems once thought unnecessary were activated with shaking hands. And still, no one believed it would be enough. A junior archival analyst stood at the edge of the chamber, unnoticed. Her station was not tactical or political. It was buried deep in historical records, old enough that most modern systems ignored them entirely. Her job existed mostly to satisfy tradition, a reminder that the Council remembered its past, or claimed to. As panic grew louder, her console pulsed softly. An alert. She frowned and tapped the screen. Unregistered signal detected. The system read, "Origin unknown. Age estimate, extremely old." That made no sense. Most signals decayed within centuries. Millennia-old transmissions did not suddenly reappear with perfect clarity. She cross-checked the data. The signal was not new. It had always been there, buried beneath layers of noise, suppressed by automated filters, classified under a category no longer in use. Her breath caught. The classification header flickered into view. Legendary/unverifiable/discontinued. Her fingers hovered, then pressed deeper. Fragments spilled across the screen. Broken languages. Incomplete translations. Star charts that did not match any modern map. One word appeared again and again, always partially erased. Humans. She frowned. The term triggered no active records. No living species registry. No recognized civilization. Just footnotes. Just warnings. She swallowed and flagged the data for Council review. No one noticed. The Council was arguing now. "We must consolidate and strike before they reach the core," a fleet admiral demanded. "We tried that," another snapped. "They walk through our defenses like fog." "This is not the time for myths or old stories," a senior delegate said sharply. "We deal in reality." At that moment, the chamber lights dimmed. Every console flickered. The hologram of the enemy fleet stuttered, distorted, then froze. A deep vibration rolled through the station, not violent, but wrong. As if space itself had shifted position by a fraction it was never meant to move. "Report," the high strategist ordered. Before anyone could answer, the junior analyst's console pulsed again. The ancient signal surged. No longer buried. No longer quiet. It pushed through every system at once. Audio channels opened automatically. The chamber fell silent as a sound filled the air. Not music, not speech, but a rhythmic pulse. Slow, steady, measured, like a heartbeat. Then the pulse resolved into something else. A voice. Low, calm. "Humans." The translation engine struggled, then locked. 3 words echoed through the chamber. "Stand behind us." Gasps rippled across the room. "What species is that?" someone demanded. "Trace the source," the high strategist said, voice tight. The tactical officers froze. "Sir, there is no source." "What do you mean, no source?" The display changed. Space itself warped on the far edge of the mapped galaxy. Stars bent inward, stretching into thin lines. Sensors screamed under the strain, reporting mass where none should exist. Something was arriving. This matches known drive technology, a scientist whispered. It shouldn't be possible. The junior analyst stared at her screen. More records unlocked on their own. Not myths. Not legends. War reports. After-action summaries. Casualty numbers so large they had been redacted from public history. Humanity had not vanished. Humanity had withdrawn. Not in defeat. In exhaustion. The voice spoke again, quieter now, but heavier. We told them, it said. If they came back, we would return. Outside the station, the darkness split open. A single shape emerged from the distortion, vast, angular, scarred by ancient battles. No banners. No lights of welcome. Just power. Then another. Then another. Hundreds. Thousands. A fleet older than memory, appearing all at once, perfectly aligned, as if they had been waiting just beyond the edge of time. The enemy armada hesitated. For the first time, it stopped advancing. In the council chamber, no one spoke. The junior analyst whispered the words that history had tried to forget. They weren't legends, she said. The human fleet formed battle lines. And the stars went silent. The galaxy did not know how to breathe anymore. Across thousands of systems, sensors struggled to process what they were seeing. Human ships, vast, angular, and unmistakably real, held formation at the edge of known space. They did not advance. They did not retreat. They waited. Inside the Galactic Council chamber, silence replaced panic. Not the calm silence of control, but the heavy kind that followed a truth no one wanted to accept. Identify them, the High Strategist ordered, though his voice carried little authority now. The tactical officers tried. Every scan returned the same result. No modern transponders. No known alloy signatures. No power curves matching current science. These ships don't exist in our databases, a sensor chief said. Not even classified ones. That's impossible, a counselor snapped. Everything exists in the database. The junior analyst stood frozen at her console, ancient files spilling faster than she could read. Entire sections of galactic history were unlocked without authorization, as if something had removed restraints long ago placed by fearful hands. They were deleted, she said softly. No one listened. The enemy fleet shifted first. Their formations tightened. Planet killer weapons powered down, not from fear, but calculation. The enemy had conquered dozens of civilizations, erased entire species. It did not panic. I studied. The enemy fleet is holding position, a tactical officer reported. They are reassessing. That word sent a chill through the chamber. They've never reassessed before, the admiral said. They always advance. The hologram zoomed out. Between the enemy armada and the human fleet stretched a wide expanse of empty space. No asteroids. No stars. Nothing to interfere. Perfect killing ground. Still, the humans did not fire. Why aren't they attacking? A delegate demanded. No answer came. Instead, another signal transmitted from the human fleet, short, precise, and broadcast on all frequencies. This time, it was not a warning. It was a question. Who remembers us? The words echoed longer than they should have. No one answered. Because no one could. The council had been built on selective memory. Wars renamed. Defeats reframed. Allies erased when they became inconvenient. Humanity had been filed away as a footnote, then quietly buried beneath more comforting lies. Pull historical war records from before the erasure age, the High Strategist ordered. The room stiffened. That era was sealed. Access required unanimous approval. The junior analyst stepped forward. They're already open, she said. All eyes turned to her. She swallowed, then projected the data. The chamber filled with images no one had seen in generations. Human ships, smaller than the ones now waiting outside, but countless. Human soldiers, exhausted, wounded, standing between alien worlds and annihilation. Council representatives younger, afraid, begging for help. Humanity was not a founding member of the council, the analyst said. They were never allowed to be. Murmurs spread. They fought on our borders, she continued. They responded to threats we ignored. They lost colonies holding lines that were never theirs. The display shifted. Casualty estimates appeared. The numbers were obscene. If they won wars, the galaxy would not survive, she said. And when the wars were over, we rewrote the story. A senior delegate stood abruptly. That's speculation. The analyst looked at him. It's confession. Another image appeared. A council decree, ancient and unanimous. Humanity, strategic liability, recommendation, isolation. They were too effective, she said. Too independent. Too willing to sacrifice themselves without asking permission. The admiral's voice was low. So we erased them. Yes, the analyst said. We convinced ourselves they were legends because legends don't ask for gratitude. Outside the station, space shifted again. Not violently. Deliberately. One human ship broke formation. It was smaller than the others, but still dwarfed modern dreadnoughts. Its hull bore scars, deep, blackened grooves that told stories older than the council itself. It moved forward alone. Enemy reaction? The high strategist asked. They're tracking it, a tactical officer said. Weapons charging. The human ship did not raise shields. Why would they send one ship? A delegate whispered. Is it a test? No, the analyst said. She stared at another unlocked file. It's tradition. The enemy fired. A focused beam lanced across space, powerful enough to crack a moon. The human ship did not evade. The beam struck its forward hull and vanished. Not deflected. Absorbed. The ship did not slow. Gasps filled the chamber. That violates conservation laws, a scientist whispered. The human vessel replied. Not with a beam. With a single pulse. The pulse rippled outward, invisible at first. Then reality buckled. Enemy ships caught in the wave folded inward, crushed by forces they did not understand. Hulls imploded. Fleets vanished in silence. The pulse ended. Space stabilized. Dozens of enemy warships were gone. Not destroyed. Removed. The enemy armada recoiled. For the first time since its rise, it retreated, just a fraction. The lone human ship stopped and rejoined formation. No pursuit followed. In the council chamber, fear finally broke into something else. Understanding. They weren't myths, the high strategist said. No, the analyst replied. They were inconvenient truths. Another human transmission arrived, routed directly to the council chamber. The voice returned, older now, weighted with something that sounded like restraint. We did not come to rule, it said. We came because you forgot. The hologram shifted. Beyond the enemy fleet, deeper in unmapped space, sensors detected something else awakening. Something vast. Something the enemy had been preparing. A final contingency. The human voice spoke one last line before the channel closed. This time, we will finish it. The enemy armada began to reposition. The galaxy realized the war had not just resumed. It had escalated beyond anything remembered, and humanity had not even begun to fight. The galaxy's fear did not come from what humanity had done. It came from what humanity had chosen not to do. Across the council chamber, ancient data streams continued to unlock, spilling truth faster than anyone could suppress it. The analyst's console glowed white-hot as sealed directives, censored footage, and long-deleted testimony reassembled themselves into a single, impossible narrative. Humanity had not vanished. Humanity had stepped away. The enemy is repositioning, a tactical officer announced. They're forming a layered defense around something. The hologram shifted, revealing a structure forming behind the enemy armada, vast, geometric, and unfinished. Massive energy conduits glowed along its surface like veins. A staging construct, the admiral said. That scale, it's not a weapon. It's a door, the analyst whispered. All eyes turned to her. She projected another archive. A war briefing from an era when the council still remembered how to be afraid. This enemy, she said, doesn't conquer planets. It consumes futures. It builds gateways to pull reinforcements from places outside mapped reality. The room stiffened. That's impossible, a scientist said weakly. It was, she replied. Until humans broke it the first time. The footage played. Human fleets fighting not for territory, but for time. Human engineers dismantling physics itself to collapse gateways mid-activation. Entire task forces sacrificed to hold unstable fronts long enough for evacuations. Humanity has not won by strength alone. They had won by refusing to let the galaxy die quietly. They stood where we retreated, the analyst said. And when the war was over, we thanked them with silence. Outside the station, the human fleet adjusted. Not aggressively. Protectively. They spread into layered formations between the enemy construct and nearby inhabited systems. Smaller vessels moved forward, not to attack, but to screen. They're shielding us, the Admiral realized. Of course they are, the analyst said. They always did. A senior delegate slammed a claw against the table. Why now? If they were watching us all this time, why wait until extinction was at our door? The human transmission answered before anyone else could. We waited, the voice said. Because intervention creates dependence. The chamber went still. You rebuilt your fleets, the voice continued. You advanced your sciences. You told yourselves you no longer needed us. The hologram zoomed in on the enemy construct. Its surface rippled as energy surged higher. But some threats do not disappear just because you forget them. A new feed opened. Human internal communication, unfiltered, untranslated. The council watched as human commanders spoke calmly, efficiently. No shouting, no panic, just coordination. One phrase repeated again and again. Containment window closing. What happens when it closes? The high strategist asked. The human voice replied, not unkindly. Then we stop containing. The enemy construct activated. Space twisted around it, stars bending toward a growing void. Reality screamed in equations the council scientists could barely read. It's opening, someone shouted. Human ships surged forward, not all at once, but in waves. Older vessels moved first, their hulls scarred and dark, absorbing fire meant for the newer ones behind them. They're rotating damage, the Admiral said, stunned. They're using ships like shields. No, the analyst said. They're using experience. The first human ship reached the edge of the forming gateway. It did not fire. It detonated. Not violently. Precisely. The explosion folded inward, collapsing space along a narrow axis. The gateway stuttered, its expansion arrested, but not destroyed. That ship just erased itself, a counselor whispered. Yes, the analyst said. And bought us 90 seconds. Human fleets surged through the gap. The battle that followed was nothing like the galaxy's wars. No glorious charges. No overwhelming barrages. Just relentless efficiency. Human ships targeted structural nodes, not enemy vessels. They ignored taunts, ignored losses, ignored opportunities for easy kills. They were not here to win a battle. They were here to end a cycle. The enemy adapted quickly. New formations emerged, weapons shifting frequency, tactics evolving in real time. They're learning, a tactical officer said. So are the humans, the Admiral replied. The human voice returned, strained now. Council, you need to evacuate the inner systems. We can't, the high strategist said. There isn't time. There is, the voice said. Because we are about to do something you won't like. The analyst's screen filled with red warnings. Human ships were rerouting power, not to weapons, but to something deeper, something older. These systems aren't listed, she said. They're not even in the design schematics. They weren't meant to be used lightly, the voice said. The enemy gateway surged again, forcing its way open. Human commanders issued a single order across the fleet. Legacy protocol. Authorization granted. The stars dimmed. Not from destruction. From withdrawal. Light itself seemed to pull back as human vessels began drawing energy from the surrounding vacuum, tapping reserves hidden beneath reality's surface. This will destabilize half the sector, a scientist shouted. Yes, the voice replied. Briefly, a single human ship moved forward, larger than the rest, its hull marked with symbols no translation engine recognized. The analyst felt her breath catch. That ship, she whispered. It's in every erased record. The enemy focused everything on it. Fire beyond comprehension slammed into its shields. They held. The ship's core flared white. Human voice channels went quiet, except one. This is not sacrifice, the commander said calmly. This is closure. The ship discharged its weapon. There was no explosion. No sound. The gateway folded in on itself like a collapsing thought, severed from whatever waited beyond. The enemy construct disintegrated, its purpose erased. The backlash tore through the battlefield. Human ships absorbed the worst of it, formation tightening instinctively. When the distortion faded, the enemy armada was broken, fragmented, disorganized, stunned. The human fleet held position. No pursuit. No celebration. In the council chamber, no one spoke. The analyst finally looked up from her console. We didn't erase them, she said softly. We hid from them. The human voice returned one last time, quieter now. That door will not open again, it said. But the enemy still exists. The hologram shifted. Beyond the battlefield, deeper in space, faint signals stirred, smaller, scattered, but numerous. Survivors. The war was not over. It had simply changed shape, and humanity had just revealed a fraction of what it was willing to unleash next. The galaxy learned something terrifying in the silence that followed. Humanity did not chase victory. They stabilized it. Across the shattered battle space, the human fleet held formation with unnatural discipline. Damaged ships rotated backward without panic. Fresh vessels slid forward to replace them. Nothing was rushed. Nothing was wasted. It looked less like a fleet reacting to battle, and more like a machine completing a long-rehearsed motion. Enemy survivors drifted in broken clusters. Some ships attempted to regroup. Others powered down weapons entirely, uncertain what action might trigger another human response. "They're waiting," a tactical officer said, confusion clear in his voice. "Yes," the admiral replied slowly. "And that should scare us more than pursuit." In the council chamber, no one sat anymore. Every delegate stood, watching the human fleet not with hope, but with awe edged by dread. "They could finish them," a counselor whispered. "Why haven't they?" The junior analyst didn't look away from her console. "Because that's not the threat," she said. She expanded the sensor map. Beyond the battlefield, far beyond where the enemy had gathered, something else was moving. Small signatures at first. Dozens. Then hundreds. Not warships. Seeds. "They're fragments," she continued. "Scattered units meant to escape if the main force fails. And regroup later," the high strategist said grimly. "Yes," the analyst replied. "Decades from now. Maybe centuries." The human fleet adjusted again. This time, the movement rippled outward across light years. Human ships split into task groups, each vanishing into short-range folds that ignored traditional jump lanes. They did not pursue randomly. They followed paths no one else could see. "How do they know where the fragments are going?" a scientist asked. The analyst hesitated, then answered honestly. "Because they planned for this outcome a long time ago." Another archive opened. Human strategic projections, dated before the first erased war had even ended. Contingency trees branching endlessly. Escape probabilities mapped across the galaxy. Predicted hiding zones based on enemy psychology. "They didn't just fight this enemy," she said. "They studied it. They learned how to survive loss." Outside, the enemy fragments began to vanish, intercepted silently, cleanly, without spectacle. No massive explosions. No triumphant displays. Just removal. The enemy fleet had once thrived on terror. Now it died in silence. A human transmission cut through all channels. Not the same voice as before. This one was sharper. Younger. "Council," it said. "You need to understand something before we proceed." The high strategist straightened. "Proceed with what?" "With what comes next." The hologram shifted again. The human fleet expanded its formation, not toward the enemy, but inward, toward the heart of the galaxy, toward populated systems, toward trade lanes, toward places humanity had not entered openly in thousands of years. Fear rippled through the chamber. "They're moving deeper," a delegate said. "Are they claiming territory?" "No," the analyst said quickly. "They're establishing perimeter control." "For whom?" another demanded. The human voice answered. "For everyone." New data streamed in. Pirate fleets abandoning systems. Rogue warlords going dark. Shadow syndicates dissolving overnight. They're collapsing power structures, the admiral realized. Not just military ones. Humanity never fought wars in isolation, the analyst said. They fought ecosystems of violence. The younger human voice continued. This enemy thrived because instability protected it. Because chaos distracted you. That ends today. A pause. You will not like what stability costs. The council did not answer. Because they already knew. Human fleets moved into positions no one had permission to deny. Strategic choke points. Deep space relay hubs. Ancient ruins the council had declared off-limits generations ago. They're ignoring sovereignty protocols, a counselor protested weakly. The high strategist said nothing. He was staring at another alert. Human vessels were activating something new. Or rather, something old. These aren't weapons, a scientist said, scanning the data. They're infrastructure. Networks unfolded between ships, gravitational anchors, signal dampeners, reality-stabilizing fields. They're locking the region down, the Admiral said. Yes, the analyst replied. They're rebuilding the cage. A private channel opened, routed directly to the council dais. The first human voice returned, the older one. You erased us because we were inconvenient, it said. Because our presence reminded you that peace is not passive. The hologram zoomed in on a single human ship drifting at the edge of the formation. Its hull was ancient, patched and repatched, its power signature dimmer than the others. That ship, the analyst whispered. It's older than the council. The human voice softened. That vessel has not returned to battle since the last war, it said. Until now. The ship began to move. Slowly, deliberately. Enemy remnants detected it immediately. What little firepower they had left converged, desperate and unfocused. The ancient human ship did not raise shields. It did not evade. Instead, it transmitted a single burst, short, precise. The analyst's console translated it automatically. Witness. The ship's hull unfolded, not into weapons, but into something resembling a framework. Rings of energy rotated outward, intersecting at angles that made no geometric sense. The surrounding space stabilized, then hardened. Enemy fire struck the field and froze, suspended like insects in amber. That's impossible, a scientist breathed. They've solidified local spacetime. The ancient ship pulsed once more. The suspended fire collapsed inward, annihilating the remaining enemy ships without explosion, without debris. Clean. Final. The ship powered down. It did not rejoin formation. It drifted, spent. The younger human voice returned, quieter now. That ship carried the last stand protocol, it said. It was built to ensure the war never needed to be fought again. A counselor finally found his voice. What? Do you want us? The answer came immediately. Nothing, the older voice said. That is why you are afraid. The council understood then. Humanity did not seek permission. It did not seek praise. It sought resolution. Another alert flashed across every console. Long-range sensors detected movement far beyond the galactic rim. Not an enemy. Humans. More fleets. Thousands of them. Dormant groups waking from hidden positions, answering a call that had not been broadcast, because it did not need to be. The analyst felt cold. They weren't the only ones watching, she whispered. The high strategist stared at the map. How many fleets does humanity have? The human voice replied, evenly. Enough. The galaxy realized the truth too late. The fleet that had arrived was not humanity's strength. It was humanity's restraint. And now, the rest of them were coming. The galaxy had always believed power announced itself. Humanity proved otherwise. As additional human fleets slipped into real space across distant sectors, there was no grand declaration, no threat broadcast, no demand for surrender. They arrived quietly, occupying positions that mattered before anyone realized those positions existed. Trade corridors narrowed. Smuggler routes collapsed. Shadow networks that had survived centuries of council neglect went blind in minutes. It felt less like an invasion, more like gravity returning to places where it had been absent for too long. Inside the council chamber, fear finally changed shape. This was no longer a panic at extinction. It was fear of relevance. They're everywhere, a delegate said, voice shaking. How did we never see them? You did, the junior analyst replied. You just convinced yourselves they were gone. She brought up another projection. Human installations, ancient, self-sustaining, hidden inside nebulae, dark systems, and dead zones no one bothered to map. Listening posts are older than most species spaceflight. Shipyards buried inside hollowed asteroids. They never left, she said. They just stopped standing in front of us. The high strategist exhaled slowly. Then why act now? The enemy fleet is broken. The gateways are closed. What justifies this scale of response? The human reply came, immediate and precise. Because the war did not end when the shooting stopped. A new feed opened. Not a battlefield. A timeline. Human historical records, raw and unfiltered, projected across the chamber. Not propaganda. Not ceremony. Just data. Worlds lost holding evacuation corridors. Colonies burned to buy minutes. Fleets were ordered to die in place so others could escape. Humanity had learned a lesson the galaxy never had. Victory was temporary. Survival required permanence. You believed peace was the absence of conflict, the human voice continued. We learned it was the presence of guardians. Outside, one of the newer human fleets maneuvered into position near a heavily populated core world, one the Council had always declared secure. A pirate armada hiding in system panicked, breaking cover as soon as the human sensors swept the region. Human ships did not fire. They transmitted. Clear. Direct. Power down. You have 30 seconds. Some complied. Others didn't. The response was instantaneous. Not a barrage. Not annihilation. A targeted collapse of propulsion systems. Weapon cores shut down remotely. Ships left drifting, helpless but intact. They're disabling them, a tactical officer said. Not destroyed. Yes, the analyst said. Because dead enemies don't learn. Survivors do. A council member rose slowly. This is enforcement. You're imposing order. The human voice did not deny it. Yes. A pause. You failed to. The words were not spoken with anger. Just a fact. The council's authority had always been theoretical. It relied on compliance, reputation, and the assumption that no one would challenge the structure outright. Humanity had just demonstrated something terrifying. They did not need the council to collapse it. They simply worked around it. New alerts poured in. Border conflicts freezing as human patrols appeared. Feuding species halting centuries-old wars the moment human ships entered orbit. Even rival empires, ancient and proud, went silent, waiting. They're obeying, a delegate whispered. Without being asked. They remember, the analyst replied. Or their ancestors do. A human fleet commander appeared briefly on a secure channel. No uniform markings. No insignia. You have one chance to understand this correctly, he said. We are not here to rule you. Then what are you doing? The high strategist asked. The commander's eyes were tired. Closing gaps. The feed cut. Another signal erupted across the battlefield remnants. The enemy survivors, the scattered fragments, had regrouped faster than expected. Smaller constructs are activated, desperate and cornered. They're attempting asymmetric strikes, the admiral said. Civilian targets. Human fleets moved immediately. This time, they did not intercept alone. They coordinated. Human ships guided local defense forces, sharing targeting data, optimizing formations, correcting centuries of flawed doctrine in real time. They're teaching us while fighting, a tactical officer said in disbelief. They always did, the analyst replied. One human ship took a direct hit while shielding a civilian convoy. Its hull ruptured. Atmosphere vented. The ship did not retreat. Instead, it adjusted its angle, placing itself fully between the convoy and the incoming fire. Its captain transmitted a single line before the feed cut. Move. The convoy escaped. The human ship did not. Silence followed. No cheers. No speeches. The human fleet closed ranks, absorbing the loss without hesitation. In the council chamber, something broke. They're dying for us, a delegate said softly. Again, the older human voice returned, low and firm. We are not dying for you, it said. We are preventing you from learning what we already know. Another archive unlocked. Human population charts, pre-war, post-war. The numbers plunged. Entire generations missing. We paid the price of ignorance once, the voice continued. We will not pay it again. And we will not let you pay for it either. The enemy's final maneuver began. A hidden signal surged from beyond the rim, calling something older, deeper, more dangerous than the fleets already destroyed. The analyst's console screamed warnings. This isn't a fleet, she said. It's a command intelligence. A core mind. The hologram showed a massive structure awakening far outside the galaxy, bound by forces humanity had tried to forget. The high strategist swallowed. Can we stop it? Yes, the human voice replied. A pause. But you will not like how. Human fleets began to converge, not outward, but inward, forming a vast, layered construct around a single point in space. What are they building? A scientist whispered. The analyst stared at the emerging pattern, recognition dawning. A lock, she said. On the galaxy itself. The human voice spoke one final time on this channel. We are about to remove something from reality, it said. And once we do, the galaxy will never be the same. The stars dimmed again. Not from withdrawal this time. From anticipation. Humanity did not explain further. They never had. They simply prepared to end the war in a way only they understood, and to accept whatever the galaxy became afterward. The galaxy felt the lock closing long before anyone understood what it was. Across thousands of star systems, instruments began reporting the same anomaly. Navigation beacons drifted out of alignment. Faster-than-light corridors narrowed, their edges roughening like frayed cloth. Long-range communications lagged by fractions of a second, small delays, but universal. Space itself was being told to behave. Inside the council chamber, scientists worked in near silence, afraid that speaking too loudly might break whatever fragile stability remained. "This isn't a weapon," one of them said at last. "It's a constraint." "A constraint on what?" the high strategist asked. The junior analyst didn't answer immediately. She was staring at a newly unlocked data set, one that made her hands tremble. "On possibility," she said. She projected the information. Human theoretical frameworks appeared, dated before most council species had discovered hyperspace. Models of reality treated not as a fixed stage, but as a flexible medium, one that could be tightened, limited, or reinforced at catastrophic cost. "They learned this during the First War," she said, when the enemy kept coming back. The enemy command intelligence began to move. Far beyond the rim, the vast structure awakened fully. Its presence felt more than seen. Entire regions of space recoiled from it, gravity wells shuddering as if something ancient had stretched after a long sleep. "This intelligence doesn't need fleets," the admiral said grimly. "It coordinates them, predicts responses. It learns faster than any species." The human voice returned, steady but heavy. "Yes," it said. "That is why it survived us." A pause followed. "And why did we change?" The lock continued to assemble. Human fleets formed concentric layers around a single, growing distortion. Each layer moved at a different rhythm, their drives synchronized not by time, but by mathematical relationships the council's systems struggled to interpret. "They're weaving space-time," a scientist whispered. "Braiding it. To trap the intelligence?" the high strategist asked. "No," the analyst replied. "To starve it." The enemy command intelligence reacted. Signals erupted outward, calls to every surviving fragment, every dormant construct, every hidden weapon. Across the galaxy, long quiet threats stirred. Human fleets responded instantly, not with panic, with preparation. They had expected this. Human ships detached from the lock and surged toward threatened systems, not to destroy, but to intercept. They arrived before local forces could even organize, cutting off the intelligence's reach node by node. "This is too coordinated," a delegate said. "They shouldn't be able to respond this fast everywhere." "They can," the analyst said softly, "because they've already fought this war." The council watched feeds from dozens of systems at once. Human ships taking hits meant for others. Human marines boarding enemy relics no one else dared approach. Human engineers overriding ancient machines while standing inside collapsing structures. Again and again, the same pattern repeated. Humanity absorbed the danger. Others survived behind them. A counselor finally asked the question none of them wanted to voice. "How many times have they done this?" The analyst closed her eyes. "More than we'll ever know." Another archive unlocked. Human internal memorials. Names carved into digital stone. Not thousands. Not millions. Billions. Worlds marked unrecoverable. Populations listed as sacrificed for containment. The analyst's voice shook. They didn't lose their worlds by accident. They chose which ones to hold, and which ones to let go. The human voice returned, lower now. "You erased us because we reminded you of the cost," it said. "Because gratitude is uncomfortable when it carries guilt." Outside, the enemy command intelligence struck directly. A wave of influence swept across the lock, probing, adapting, attempting to rewrite the constraints forming around it. Human ships flared as systems overheated, reality pushing back against the imposed order. Several vessels broke formation. "They're failing," a scientist shouted. "No," the admiral said. "They're yielding." The analyst understood. "They're bleeding off stress," she said, using their own ships as release points. One human vessel overloaded completely. Its core collapsed inward, forming a localized singularity that absorbed the feedback tearing at the lock. The ship vanished without explosion, without debris. Just gone. A human commander's voice came through, tight, controlled. Stability restored. Continue assembly. No pause. No acknowledgement of loss. The council chamber was silent. They don't even mourn, a delegate whispered. They do, the analyst said. Just not when it would cost time. The lock neared completion. The enemy intelligence began to weaken, not dying, but losing reach. Its signals dulled. Its control fragmented. It's starving, the high strategist said. Cut off from expansion. Yes, the human voice confirmed. And now comes the part we warned you about. The human fleets began withdrawing power, not just from their drives, but from something deeper. Vacuum energy dropped across entire regions. Stars dimmed fractionally, their output siphoned into the structure. This will shorten stellar lifespans, a scientist cried. You're condemning future systems. The human reply was immediate. We know. A pause. We have already buried those futures once. The enemy intelligence screamed, not audibly, but through every sensor, every mind sensitive enough to feel it. Reality warped as it attempted a final escape. Human fleets tightened the lock. This will collapse part of the subspace, the analyst said. Trade routes, travel, communication. Yes, the human voice said. For a time, the council realized the truth too late. Humanity was not saving the galaxy as it was. They were saving it at a cost, one they had already paid before, alone. The lock snapped shut, not with violence, with finality. The enemy command intelligence was severed from reality's deeper layers, trapped in a bounded region of existence it could no longer influence beyond. It was alive, but irrelevant. The backlash rippled outward. Navigation collapsed across multiple sectors. Civilizations screamed as their certainty vanished overnight. Human ships absorbed the worst of it, systems burning out, hulls cracking under stresses no other fleet could endure. One by one, human vessels powered down. Exhausted, spent. In the council chamber, the high strategist finally spoke. You've crippled the galaxy to save it. The human voice answered, weary but unbroken. No, it said. We crippled ourselves. Another archive opened. Human recovery plans, stretching centuries forward. Slow rebuilding. Limited travel. Watching. Waiting. We will stay, the voice continued. Until the wound heals. Until your children forget how close the dark came. And after that, the high strategist asked. Silence. Then, that depends on whether you remember or erase us again. Outside, the human fleet held position around the lock, battered, diminished, but unyielding. The war was effectively over. But the price had only just become visible. And the galaxy was about to learn what it meant to live under a peace that had teeth, one paid for by a species that had already given everything and chose to give more anyway. Peace did not arrive gently. It arrived like a wound that had stopped bleeding but had not yet healed. Across the galaxy, ships drifted in confused orbits, their navigation systems recalibrating to a reality that no longer behaved the way it used to. Trade lanes that had existed for millennia were gone, folded into unusable corridors of twisted spacetime. Entire economic models collapsed overnight. Civilizations survived, but comfort did not. In the council chamber, no one argued anymore. The debates that once stretched for cycles now ended before they began, because every decision returned to the same truth. Humanity had rewritten the rules and left the galaxy to live with them. The enemy command intelligence is contained, a scientist reported quietly. No outbound influence detected. No expansion vectors. It's trapped. The word felt fragile. Trapped where? A delegate asked. The junior analyst answered without looking up. Inside a bounded pocket of reality that can't interact with ours in any meaningful way. A pause. It will still exist, she added. But it can't touch us. The high strategist leaned back slowly. His voice carried something new. Relief. And the human fleets? They remain in position, the admiral said, holding the lock, monitoring every fluctuation. How long can they sustain this? Another counselor asked. The analyst hesitated, then told the truth. Indefinitely, she said, as long as they're willing to pay the cost. Outside the station, the battered human fleets held their perimeter. Ships bore scars deeper than before. Some had lost entire sections of the hull. Others drifted with auxiliary systems barely functional. And yet, the formation never wavered. Human vessels rotated shifts. Some powered down to minimal function while others took their place. Repairs were slow, careful, deliberate. No reinforcements rushed in, because none were needed. They looked tired, a counselor whispered. Yes, the analyst said. That's what restraint looks like. Across the galaxy, reactions varied. Some worlds celebrated survival. Some cursed humanity for the disruption. Some quietly rewrote their doctrines overnight. But the ones that truly understood did something else. They watched. A message arrived from a powerful imperial bloc that had once rivaled the council itself. Its tone was careful, respectful, requesting clarification of human intent moving forward. The council forwarded it immediately. The reply came hours later. Short. Exactly. We will remain until stability returns. After that, we will withdraw. Withdraw. The word unsettled everyone. They can't just leave, a delegate argued. Not after this. They can, the high strategist said quietly. And that may be the most frightening part. Another message arrived. This one from a minor civilization that had nearly been erased during the war. It carried no political weight, no military power. Just gratitude. A single line. Thank you for standing when no one else could. The council waited for the human response. It never came. The analyst understood why. Humans don't answer gratitude, she said. They answer responsibility. In the days that followed, human fleets began something no one expected. They shared. Not technology. Not weapons. Lessons. Human commanders met with local defense forces, breaking down engagements from the war. Not boasting. Not lecturing. Explaining. Where formations failed. Why centralized command structures broke under pressure. How overconfidence killed faster than enemy fire. They're teaching us how not to need them, the admiral said. Yes, the analyst replied. That's always been the goal. In one system, a human patrol arrived to assist with restoring a collapsed star lane. Engineers worked side by side with alien crews, silently adjusting machinery that had baffled others for generations. When asked how they knew how to fix it, the human engineer replied simply, because it broke the same way last time. No one asked when last time was. A week later, a counselor finally gathered the courage to ask the question hanging over everything. What happens to the galaxy now? The human response came through the older voice, the one that carried centuries in its pauses. Now, it said, you live with consequences. The council stiffened. You mean punishment? The high strategist asked. No, the voice replied. We mean memory. A new transmission followed. Human historical records, curated, precise, undeniable, released to every major archive across the galaxy. Not censored, not softened. The erased war. The casualties. The council's decision to isolate humanity. Nothing hidden. Civilizations reacted with shock, with shame, with disbelief. Some denied it. Others accepted it. A few publicly apologized. Formal declarations broadcast across multiple sectors. The human fleets did not respond. They're not interested in apologies, a delegate said. No, the analyst replied. They're interested in prevention. As the truth spread, something else happened. The legends changed. Children on distant worlds stopped hearing stories about mythical saviors and ancient monsters. They heard about a species that stood in silence while others panicked. A species that did not ask to be remembered, but ensured forgetting would never be easy again. Humanity became real, and that reality was heavier than any myth. The enemy command intelligence stirred once. Just once. A ripple passed through the lock. Weak, unfocused, desperate. Human ships responded instantly, tightening formation, reinforcing constraints. No alarm was raised. No announcement made. The disturbance ended. The high strategist watched the feeds and felt something unexpected. Confidence. They have it, he said. Completely contained. Yes, the analyst said. But not destroyed. Why leave it alive? A counselor demanded. Why not finish it? The human voice answered, firm. Because annihilation teaches nothing. A pause. Containment teaches patience. The council fell silent. At that moment, they understood. Humanity was not the galaxy's shield. It was its conscience. Weeks passed. Trade routes slowly adapted. New corridors formed. Civilizations rebuilt. Not the way they had before, but with caution. Human fleets remained, quiet sentinels at the edge of awareness. Then, one cycle, the impossible happened. A human ship departed its post. No announcement. No explanation. It simply disengaged and vanished into deep space. Another followed. Then another. They're leaving, a delegate said, disbelief in his voice. The analyst checked the data. Not all of them, she said. Just enough. For what? She looked up, eyes steady. To remind us that they can. The older human voice returned one final time to the council. The lock is stable, it said. The galaxy will recover. A pause. We will step back now. The high strategist leaned forward. Will you return? The voice answered without hesitation. If needed. The channel closed. Human fleets did not vanish all at once. They faded. Quietly. Methodically. Leaving behind repaired systems, altered doctrines, and a galaxy that could no longer pretend it had survived alone. As the last visible human formation withdrew beyond sensor range, the analyst finally exhaled. They were never legends, she said. No, the high strategist agreed. They were the line we crossed, and the one that held. Far beyond the galaxy, human sensors remained active, watching, waiting, because legends fade. But guardians remember. The galaxy did not celebrate the end of the war. There were no victory festivals, no grand parades of ships drifting through luminous nebulae, no speeches carved into history declaring triumph over the darkness. Because everyone understood the same truth. This was not a victory. It was survival. And survival felt heavy. In the weeks after the human fleets began their withdrawal, the galaxy entered a strange, fragile calm. Systems once connected by effortless travel now required planning, patience, and humility. Faster-than-light routes no longer bent easily to ambition. Navigation demanded precision instead of arrogance. Civilizations adapted. Some struggled. Some failed. But none could deny that the stars themselves felt steadier. Inside the Galactic Council chamber, the atmosphere had changed completely. The endless noise of politics had faded, replaced by something unfamiliar. Reflection. The high strategist stood alone before the central display, watching a star map that no longer pulsed with warnings. Only one anomaly remained, a distant, contained distortion, marked clearly and unmistakably. Containment zone, do not approach. They're still holding it, a counselor said quietly, joining him. Even after withdrawing. Yes, the strategist replied. Because that's who they are. The junior analyst entered moments later, carrying a data slate filled with updates from across the galaxy. Reports of stabilized systems. Of human patrol beacons quietly handed over to local authorities. Of final repair teams completing work and departing without ceremony. They're almost gone, she said. The strategist nodded. And yet it feels like they're still here. They are, the analyst said. Just not in the way we're used to measuring. The last human fleets did not vanish into myth. They left markers, not monuments. Lessons. Across dozens of worlds, human instructors completed final briefings with local defense forces. Not lectures on superiority, but hard truths about limits. You cannot be everywhere, one human commander told a coalition fleet. So you must decide where you will stand. In another world, a human engineer dismantled a device she had personally helped stabilize. Why remove it? A local official asked. It protects us. The engineer shook her head. Because if you rely on it, you'll never build your own. Then she left. No demands. No oversight. No chains. The galaxy felt exposed without them. That, too, was intentional. The council convened one final emergency session, not out of panic, but necessity. Every major civilization attended. Even those who had once refused to acknowledge council authority. The agenda was short. Memory. We must decide, the high strategist began, what we tell future generations. Silence followed. Everyone remembered the last time that choice had been made. A senior delegate spoke first. We cannot erase them again. No, another agreed. We cannot afford that lie. What about the cost? A third asked. The damage. The lost futures. The junior analyst raised her voice, calm but firm. Humanity never hid the cost, she said. We did. The council voted unanimously. Every archive across the galaxy would receive the full record. Not a softened version. Not a heroic rewrite. The truth. Humanity's wars. Humanity's sacrifices. Humanity's withdrawal. Not as abandonment, but restraint. The file was given a simple name. The last line. As the data propagated across the stars, reactions rippled outward. Some worlds responded with shame. Some with gratitude. Some with anger at realizing how close they had come to extinction while believing themselves safe. But no one dismissed it as a legend. That word no longer fits. Far beyond council space, In a region no map fully described, a small human station orbited a dim star. It was old, patched, and functional. Inside, a handful of human officers monitored streams of data from 1,000 listening posts. Stability indexes climbed slowly. Threat projections flattened. One officer leaned back in his chair. "They'll be fine." Another shook her head. "They'll be better." Eventually, a third glanced at a secondary display, one that showed the containment zone, quiet and unchanged. "And if they forget again?" he asked. The first officer didn't answer immediately. "Then we'll remind them," he said at last. Not angrily, not proudly, simply as fact. Back in the galaxy, life resumed. Children were born on worlds that would have burned without human intervention. Ships launched from shipyards rebuilt using doctrines humans never signed their names to. Civilizations argued again about trade, borders, ideology. But something fundamental had shifted. When tensions rose, someone always asked the same question. Is this worth waking them again? And the answer was almost always no. Years passed, then decades. The containment zone remained stable, its presence a constant reminder that some doors were not meant to be opened again. Humanity did not return. Not openly, not dramatically, but sometimes, rarely, a deep space sensor would register a shadow where no ship should be. Or a failing system would correct itself moments before collapse. Or a rogue fleet would vanish without explanation. The galaxy learned not to ask, because asking implies expectation. And humanity had made one thing clear. They were not guardians by obligation. They were guardians by choice. On the anniversary of the war's end, the junior analyst, now an archivist of considerable authority, stood alone in the chamber above the no longer dying star. The star had recovered, its lights steady once more. She activated a private recording, one that would never be broadcast. "They thought humans were legends," she said softly. "They were wrong." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "Legends fade. Stories soften. Truth endures." She looked out at the stars. Humans were never myths. They were the answers no one wanted to remember. The recording ended. Far away, beyond sight and signal, human sensors continued to watch. Not because they sought control, but because someone had to remember what the galaxy preferred to forget. And if the darkness ever returned, if the stars ever began to bend the wrong way again, humanity would not announce itself. It would simply appear, silent, prepared, and very real.